Did you like what I put in the start of the last episode?
It was funny.
I was thinking of doing that forever.
Forever?
Yeah.
Or the same one?
Yeah.
Do it.
But we'll pick up things along the way. Like this. Hey, say something funny quick.
Ooh. So what are you doing on Saturday night?
Go to the pub.
The pub. Okay.
Hello and welcome to the D2 NBA podcast. My name's Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boffman. Mr. Boffman, how are we?
I'm excellent, Sean. We're doing a wine pod. Should we do a little ASMR cheers?
To podcasting. I just realised as we're drinking some bubbles on the roof, something's reflecting off something crystal and we've got rainbows on the roof.
Oh, we do.
This is fucking gorgeous.
Oh my goodness, this is prime podcasting weather. I actually almost spat my drink out before.
And we've also got Wii Sports Resort and a spare Wii remote sitting on the edge of the bed.
And we've got a trio of...
Table, we're not doing this on a bed.
We've got a trio of Cadbury Christmas calendars.
A medley.
Yeah, a medley, there you go. Staring back at us.
Yeah, so we thought we'd shake it up a little bit. We've tried to just change the vibe of the pod and see if we sound any different drinking wine as opposed to non-alcoholic beers or water. So yeah, mail us at PO Box if you think we sound different. But what's going on in your life, Dante?
What's going on in my life? Not heaps. I ate approximately 600 grams of pasta this afternoon and then promptly fell asleep on the couch and woke up in the alternate dimension. Because, you know, like just all that body energy going to metabolizing just that mountain of carbs. There was nothing left for anything else. And I woke up in the third quarter of the Blazers Bulls game on the couch with the laptop like on like 5% charge and like a little bit of dribble coming out. So it's been a glamorous day for me. It's been a very glamorous day for me.
Yeah, gorgeous. And what a beautiful segue, Dante. We should go through the intro. What's it say on the sheet? Oh yeah, plug my articles. Maybe we'll use that as a closing. What a beautiful segue to talk about the Bulls. Now, what we've done is, for these slow news days that just happen to fall on a Thursday, we are giving ourselves homework of just looking at a team, looking at like, hey, what's this? What's a major question around this team? Let's watch them. Let's like focus on watching this team this week. And this week we're going to go with the Chicago Bulls. For the fast thinkers out there, that gives us 30 weeks of content, which is just gorgeous. But so this week we said to each other, all right, let's watch the Bulls. Let's, myth bust them. Let's go through it and let's see, okay, are they for real? Is this, an easy schedule? Which I can tell you it isn't. And then let's just take a look at the Bulls. I think everyone understands what I'm trying to say by now. And of course, as soon as we pick a team, their starting center and major part for the team gets COVID and misses the whole entire week's worth of basketball games. But we've obviously been watching a lot of basketball throughout this whole entire season. We know what the team looks like with Nick Vooch in there, and now we know what the team looks like with Tony Bradley.
Yeah, we're big Tony Bradley fans here at the Deep Two. Love some Tony Bradley.
But this Bulls team, much talked about. The off season was obviously very divisive. Some people thought it was a great idea, some people didn't. Cough, cough, me. Maybe you as well. But I'll just start off just by saying how this team's going so far. So all these stats are from before their loss to the Portland Trail Blazers today. And per Cleaning the Glass, they were 7th in offense, 5th in defense, and had the 4th best point differential. Something I liked out of all their stats is that they're 10th in free throw rate, which is obviously a big topic this year, but you've got a lot of dudes who can draw fouls. Where is the other interesting? They are allowing the 3rd most shots in the paint this season. That's with Vooch and with Tony Bradley. And they're allowing the 8th most threes. But their location effective field goal percentage is 19th, which means out of... Let me just make sure I've got this. It's a number which looks at how they'd go considering... if the opponent shot an average percentage from all across the floor, given the shots that they give up. So on that, they're in the bottom half of the league, coming 19th, because they're giving up more favourable shots to the opponent, as I mentioned before, in the paint and from behind the arc. Now, I've just realised I've made a little bit of a mistake because I've just gone 100% into the nitty-gritty, too deep with two of us, and we should probably start off lighter. So, Dante, can you take the conversation from here?
There's some nits and grits in that one, my goodness. Well, I think the most obvious place to start is that DeMar DeRozan is 4th in the league in points per game, averaging 27. No, I'm not taking a victory lap or anything. No, I'm actually not, because I have been unfairly boxed into this DeMar DeRozan fan club bit by you, and I'm not going to fulfill my role in this artificial construct by cheerleading him. But he's been really, really good. He's currently, like I said, 4th in the league. LaVine is 7th in the league at about 25 per. So with those two dudes on the wing and also doing a bulk of the ball handling in the half court, that's pretty devastating 1-2 punch, especially considering that LaVine is really good at getting to the rim. He's an absolutely lethal shooter, and DeRozan is good at getting to the rim, but also, he's taking a lot of mid-ranges. But between them, that's a pretty good spread of shot distribution. So that makes them pretty dangerous on the wing. I guess when I've been watching them, the thing that stands out most to me is that they just run all the time. They push the pace so often. They're first in points off turnovers. So with dudes on the perimeter defensively, like Lonzo and Alex Caruso, just, ripping the ball away from everybody, they'll just get the steal and they'll just run. Like leak outs, like, 3-on-1s, like all of these easy points. And there's a real, commitment to pushing it whenever they can, even sometimes after made baskets, which feels like a very Lonzo thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And you wouldn't have thought that a team with, like DeRozan and Vooch and LaVine would all of a sudden just be like this fast break monster. But I guess Lonzo's come in and really kind of
I guess all you need is two to tango. So if you've got Zach LaVine and Alonzo Ball, Vooch isn't running down. Vooch, I wouldn't be surprised if he has no fast break points this season. But two to tango, if you've got two dudes that like to run, one dude that likes to pass it to him, that's a transition offense in itself. Yeah,
and Lonzo has been really, really good defensively. He's just kind of he's all hands, just getting in there and slapping it away. And Caruso's averaging 2.5 steals a game, leads the league, and he's playing 19 minutes a game,
and just pissing off the other team's best perimeter player.
Yeah, and honestly, LaVine's been pretty good defensively. LaVine, even down the stretch today against the Blazers, was locking up Dame. They were all right, you're on the court to defend Dame, and your Dame was not really getting much done against him. I think that wholesale commitment to run and kind of giving Lonzo the keys in that situation, there's a bit of Showtime about it, a bit of Showtime Lakers about it, because the dudes who are finishing those plays is, it's your DeRozan, it's your LaVine, it's your Caruso, really athletic wings who are just getting up, and LaVine's had a couple of dunks that will be on the top 10 montage at the end of the season. I've been really impressed. I guess the question that we're looking at, with this team, is, are they actually good?
Let's get to that in a minute. And you mentioned something with commitment, and I think this is a massive, massive pat on the back to Billy Donovan. And we've seen that with his most recent OKC teams, whether it be as early on with Kevin Durant or even with that surprise Chris Paul team. Billy Donovan, I don't think too much of him as a coach, and I actually said when he got hired that, hey, you've just locked into the 15th best coach. But this is now the 3rd or 4th time that he's got a team just to be try, just do something. And he looks like a gangster, especially because he's sitting there with the Chicago Bulls logo on his chest. But he just looks like a good coach who's just made these dudes try all the time. And if you're a team that the Bulls are 10-5 now, but at one point they were 4-0, and they were playing really well, and they're still playing hard, they're still running, they're not resting on their laurels. You've still got Caruso picking up dudes full court. You've got guys like Javonte Green and Derrick Jones Jr. just playing incredible hustle ball. They're the glue dudes who aren't getting any plays run from whatsoever, but they're still going out there. They're still just getting absolutely everything. And I don't know if Derrick Jones Jr. got fouled out today, but he definitely had 5 fouls for a long time. And it's good on you, Billy Donovan. You've done a good job here. But what I want to talk about is a little bit of a victory lap for DeMar DeRozan, for the person who...
You giving DeMar DeRozan a victory lap?
Well, I picked him as an all-star last year, remember?
Yeah.
And you didn't.
Yeah. So you're right, I have always hated him and thought he was terrible.
I also do want to take a victory lap on Alonzo Ball, who you haven't believed his production for the past 2 years. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm gearing up to eat crow on that because he's genuinely been really fucking good.
To be fair, the whole reason I bought in on him, and I'm like, I would love Lonzo Ball on 30 teams, is just because he is that interconnected glue that can just swing, like, you know, Sean Livingston, but he can start games and shoot threes, right? I just like the fact that you've got a guy who can fit in or be, you know, the guy who's going to dribble the ball every time down. I didn't expect him to take 7.5 threes a game and make like 4 of them. Like he's shooting 45% from 3, and he's making fucking contested ones with dudes picking his nose.
Yeah, he's taking some pretty insane threes. Yeah, he's looked really, really good and like comfortable and like instinctive with all these passes, these hit ahead passes, like making the right play in the half court, and then when the situation requires it, you know, either stepping in and getting to the rim aggressively, which is something that he's almost never done, or taking a contested 3 with someone in his face. Which, I mean, if they're getting that out of him, it's like, well, you know, he justifies the $20 million a year and more pretty quickly.
Every time I watch him, I'm just like, he plays like he's got a chip on his shoulder, but he doesn't really, because he's just like a good team player. The only chip I'm seeing is the fact that you just like hatcheted away at his shoulder for the past 4 years, and I'm like, the only chip on his shoulder is because Dante says this is it, and he just keeps getting better. So like, all the best to Lonzo. You've just made $80 million, so like, congratulations, go out and earn it, and you're doing it, right? But
give Lonzo his flowers.
I want to talk about DeMar, because like, DeMar for the past nearly a decade has been a bit of like an anti-analytics player.
Yeah.
And it obviously looks bad when you trade him for Kawhi Leonard and they obviously go off and win a title and everything was just like supercharged. And we've seen there has been like an NBA scoring bubble that's been popped this year. But, you know, the NBA, the whole thing with the scoring was threes, transition, 3-and-D, 3-and-D. And if you can't do that, you just don't fit in. And DeMar's always been like, oh, he's not taking threes. And yes, this year he's taking more threes.
He's taking them. He's not making them.
Funnily enough, because the league has sort of regressed back to where he is comfortable. Because no matter what, even if you've got Steph Curry and the Warriors running and putting up a million threes, you know, for the rest of their lives, DeMar DeRozan was still always getting to that mid-range and still always getting his shots. And like, the league just sort of moved past that. But now that we've gone back to a league where the average points per game is 108, not 152, right? Now that the league's gone back to that, DeMar DeRozan was just sitting there waiting for the bubble to pop and then the league just to come back to him. And now, as soon as you're in this thing where Trae Young's not getting the calls, Damian Lillard, his shot's not falling because you can be a little bit rougher with him, like all these dudes aren't getting foul calls, it's like, oh, well, DeMar was still just making shots, was still just like pump fake, turning fade, just drain the shot. It's like, this is more aligned with the NBA that DeMar DeRozan, A, grew up watching and emulating, and B, what he excels at. So I think that, I don't think he's going to stay at the 4th best scorer for the rest of the league, but for the rest of the season. But this is a custom-made NBA for DeMar DeRozan, and it might be the first time in 10 years it's been like that.
I think the interesting thing with his shot distribution, because he is taking threes, like I think he's taking like 5 a game, which is, you know, for someone who in San Antonio completely eschewed the 3.
Wow, sorry, he's actually taking 2.5, but it looks like a lot.
Well, it seems like it's 5 because he's not like immediately, he's not immediately turning his back when he gets on, trying to post someone up. Like he looks really smooth and comfortable with it, which for someone who in San Antonio, like, you know, I think there was one season where he was, you know, taking like less than 1 a game, which for a ball dominant wing is insane. When Vooch comes back, obviously Vooch does a lot of work in that exact same area. Now, Vooch can space out to the 3 pretty comfortably, and you feel very confident that they'll be able to work Vooch in as that from the elbows and from the top of the 3 DHO, facilitator, run cutters around him. But Vooch obviously loves to post up as well on that wing, and that's where all of DeMar's mid-range comes from. It either comes from catching on the wing and then like working himself into a post-up, or from posting up straight away and catching the ball. So I think, although Vooch being out almost certainly makes them worse, because Tony Bradley has been terrible.
Tony Bradley's good. This just isn't for him.
Catching the ball.
Did you see? He caught a lob off he jarred his finger and it went in. And it's like, fuck, that's really going to help you plus minus.
I have not been impressed by Tony Bradley whatsoever. And Tony Bradley, former UNC player, from From the era when I was watching college basketball. I watched Tony Bradley in college.
Wait, tell me that story again. Who was the dude you used to watch in college and love?
Which one?
Like, who was like your favourite scorer? Wasn't it like some like Azella or some stupid shit?
Some who? Azella
or a Plumlee?
Oh, no. My
Psycho T.
No, it wasn't Psycho T. My all-time favorite college basketball player was John Henson.
Yeah, that's right. John Henson. That's exactly the one.
He was a beanpole 21-year-old. ACC Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, whatever the fuck that means.
Also Bryce Johnson, who I think got 2 years on the Clippers.
Rock Divers drafted him.
Yeah, Rock Divers did draft him. So Vooch being out makes them worse, but it also streamlines DeRozan's ability to operate where he wants. And I think the question for them going forward in maximising their ceiling will be, how can you balance those two things? Because you could continue to let DeMar cook in the mid-range and average 27, but that would mean to some extent marginalising Vooch, which you don't want to do. You want to bring Vooch in so that he's not averaging 13 points a game, he's averaging 18 points a game, which will, I think, require a redistribution of DeMar's shots, which, you know, like you mentioned, he so far has had like the perfect opportunity catered completely to his skill set and his tendencies to just like score the ball how he wants, which he won't have when Vooch comes back. So I think that's an interesting tactical and to a lesser extent philosophical discussion that will need to be had with this team, because those two are not an obvious fit together in the same way that Levine is with either of them, because Levine can operate in areas that they don't operate in.
I think so. To push back on that, something that I saw this quote 2 weeks ago and you talking about has just made me remember it, coming from Sam Smith of Bulls.com. That's the third Sam Smith, by the way, but you know, that's neither here nor there. And it was pretty much exactly.
Who's the second Sam Smith?
So you got the singer, someone I can't remember, and then this one.
So wouldn't that make this one the second one then? If you can't remember him, surely he doesn't deserve the second place on the podium. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's neither here nor there. Not here nor there. So there was a quote from Vooch saying that he is, quote, totally fine, unquote, with his role in the Bulls. And this was just a puff piece, brown nose.
Yeah.
But if Vooch is going to average 13, 11 and a career best 4.5 assists per game, but if Vooch is sick of being a mediocre player in Orlando for the past 8 years and wants to be like, okay, if I'm going to win, if Chicago is going to be 10-4, we're going to need him to just be 13 points per game.
Well, I'm not talking about necessarily from like an ego and morale perspective, although I will say that everybody 8 games into the season is happy with their role on their new team.
I don't know.
40 games into the season.
Orleans Pelicans.
40 games into the season, we'll see if you know, Little Birdie Vooch still sings the same song. What I'm talking about is that I think that their potential, their ceiling is going to be higher if you're getting more out of Vooch, and that is going to mean probably getting less out of DeMar. If Vooch comes back and averages 13, 11 and a career best 4.5 assists, and DeMar's averaging 27, I would probably think less of them as a real, genuine, like, you know, Eastern Conference Finals threat than I would if Vooch was averaging 17 points a game. And DeMar was averaging a little bit less, because that means you're integrating Vooch, and that means when push comes to shove, you've got something else to go to, because although we've seen Vooch do it and average, you know, 21, 22 points in Orlando, if you're averaging 13 points for 82 games and then in the playoffs DeMar's being locked up, it's not that easy to say like, oh, like now we'll just go back to Orlando Vooch, he's going to come in and he's our like fail safe. Like, you kind of need to have that going with the team.
I could not disagree with you more. I think someone like Vooch, where it's like, okay, you're going against the Atlanta Hawks and they're like, DeAndre Hunter is just absolutely eating DeMar DeRozan's lunch. He can't get anything. Okay.
DeAndre Hunter has to be on the fucking floor.
Well, he's going to at least play 3 games in that series. So I think, honestly, because it's Vooch and because he's just been such a consistent presence for like his whole entire career and it's been meaningless, right? I honestly think that out of all players, it would be a post-up European big like Vooch, where you're just like, hey, we need you to score 25 tonight.
Yeah, but he won't be able to.
I think he will.
I don't think he will, because you can't go from a 10% roll to a 50% roll like that. Just because Billy Donovan's
ASMR,
ASMR. Because Billy Donovan is like we need you right now to do something that you haven't done all year. If you give him the post touches that he kind of needs to be, I'm not saying, and when I say engage, I'm not saying like he's a bad dude who's going to disengage if he doesn't get the ball. I'm saying engage in the attack of the team. If he's doing that and he really is like, you know, valued as that like third star, second star even, not just a facilitating big man, I think that is going to increase their potency when push comes to shove. And I think that will necessitate a step away from a DeMar ISO heavy offense, which might become easier if DeMar all of a sudden is averaging 23 and he's shooting 45%, not 27 on 50%, and he's the fourth best scorer in the league.
Yeah.
If this bubble burst trend that you're talking about kind of starts to reverse a little bit, and all of a sudden it's not a wing, you know, mid-range Carmelo Anthony ISO scoring wonderland, and DeMar's not doing that as well, maybe then it becomes easier to say to the team, all right, we're going to pivot back to, you know, giving Vooch some of those touches. I think I'm convinced that a more engaged Vooch in the flow of the offense, the structure of the offense, will mean that they are better come the playoffs, regardless of if that means a little bit of a move away from DeMar.
Yeah, and just on that point, there was this really interesting point in the game saying, I don't know how to read into this, but DeMar DeRozan was sitting and it was the full unit of starters with DJJ at the 5 and Javonte Green at the 4. And they, like you said at the start, they were just sprinting off of makes, and it was even more pronounced than when DeMar was on the court. Now, obviously, DeMar loves the half court, but they were just sprinting down, and it was lightning quick. And it's
DeMar has been running though.
He has.
I'll push back on that categorization.
I test though.
Yeah, eye test, of course. No, I've been impressed with DeMar's level of commitment to getting out on the wing, and I think they've looked really good through this stretch where Tony Bradley has been shit, and then Billy Donovan's been like, damn, Tony Bradley sucks, let's bring in DJJ and go small. And DJJ just knows how to like set a screen and like roll to the rim, and I think against the Lakers,
that's actually all he knows.
Well, yeah. Hey, if you get a skill, do it well.
I think you drafted him as a shooting guard, didn't you?
Yeah, I think so. Hey, we call that airplane mode. No. I think against the Lakers, he might have had like in the third quarter like 9 points and like drawn 3 fouls, and, you know, like been a really substantial part of the attack. Not that is saying much because the Lakers are so shit, but it's good to know that they've got like, in Vooch, they've got this modern facilitating big man, like, you know, kind of like Jokic light. They've got Tony Bradley, who's just like your classic shitty backup center. And then they can go small and lithe and lean and athletic with Derek Jones Jr. Yeah. That's looks, because a lot of teams don't have kind of like multiple looks that they can throw out. So I guess to kind of like go using some corporate slang above the treetops here. And to say, is this team good? Should we be buying this?
All right, can I push back on corporate slang and use podcast slang?
Okay, what's the podcast slang?
Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Is the juice worth the squeeze? Well, I'll tell you this and you can tell me. Their most recent wins are in order of recency against the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nets, the Mavericks, the 76ers, the Celtics, and the Jazz.
And then obviously 2 of their first 3 games are against the Pistons.
Yeah. Because that was a discussion after they were 4-0. It's like, well, we'll see what happens when they play some real teams. I would say those are some real teams. There's a fair case to be made that none of those teams, I would say, except the Clippers and the Jazz, are maximized as what they will be this season. But still, I mean, if
They've won some games, and they're all on the road.
And they've won some games by an absolute whipping.
And they also got kicked the shit out of by Golden State. But that's a trend in the league at the moment.
Yeah, we can't hold that against them. We cannot hold that against them. I'd say they're good.
Yeah.
And I'd say that they are like well and truly, I would be comfortable saying now that they'll be a top 6 seed, that they'll be a playoff team.
Okay, so I'm very similar. I'm comfortable saying that by the time the playoffs come around, they will still be behind Brooklyn, the best version of Philly, Milwaukee, and Atlanta. which puts them 5.
And Atlanta's got some work to do.
Atlanta's got so much work to do, and their offense is becoming very Nate McMillan. Maybe they can fire their coach halfway through the season.
Well, that worked last time.
Is he still interim? I still think they're just outside the top 4 in terms of winning playoff games and winning playoff series, but they might, if they keep this up and they keep winning these games and they're just a regular season darling, I can see them getting into the top 4. But in terms of skill on the court, like, you know, what the fuck do you make out of Philly? Like, you know, Philly are losing games without Embiid and Tobias Harris. So it's like, and we can't say the B word.
We know the S word.
So it's like, yes.
We cannot.
While Philly is a top 4 level talent team, they're probably not going to be a top 4 seed just because of how crazy that situation is. So I think they're in that, 5 to 6 in terms of talent, but they're probably going to win more games than that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just like their versatility. They've got a lot of looks. A lot of the players that they're throwing out in their looks aren't like the most amazing players. Like, Caruso is not going to average 2.5 steals. Caruso is not going to be like the guy that changes a playoff series in the same way that, like, say, like a Sean Livingston kind of role player type could. You're probably not going to get the Caruso game. He's no Kelly Olynyk, let me just say that much. But I do like their versatility, and at least in getting to the playoffs and maybe a first round series, like, versatility is really important. Like, if you can throw something else out that the other team maybe isn't as prepared for, then you've got a different look. So I'd be pretty confident that they'd be a playoff team.
All right. Well, moving on from that, my final question is: if you are Arturas Karnisovas,
who?
Artie K.
Big Artie.
And you could go right back to the very start of the off-season, maybe even as soon as you took over as...
Like, if we're playing 2K and we just go start season from the start.
No, as in, like, from a year ago. Yeah. Would you do everything you did again?
Fuck yeah.
Really?
No, I don't. It's working out pretty well. No, I probably wouldn't, because... like, the DeRozan contract is $27 million a year for 3 years. So there's massive potential that, like, Vooch gets older, DeRozan gets older, their contracts are not maximized in value. Their trade value is not maximized. And after 1 to 2 years of, like, mid-level playoff performance, like, maybe we win a series, maybe we get to the second round, then we're on the treadmill of mediocrity. That being said, if the alternative is that they're just bad until they're good again, then for a front office, that's not really an option. They have to do something, because they can't just keep being bad and say, we're going to roll out Zach LaVine next to Kobe White and we're going to see how it goes. Everyone knows how that goes.
Yeah.
On an individual level, like Big Artie kind of, you have to do something. And I do think that there's this... I do think that it's almost like a myth that you have to go from being bad to being good. That you get young players and they just, like, develop like the Thunder team did, like the Warriors did, or you swing a big free agency signing like the Heat did, and then you're all of a sudden good. I do think it's easy to get good from being okay. Regardless if you have to shed a couple of assets to get, to get to being okay. So I do think that there is something in that, and I'd rather be in a position where I'm fighting for a playoff spot than where I'm 12th again. And what am I waiting for? I'm waiting to trade for Bradley Beal, or I'm waiting to draft the next, number 1 overall pick. Like, I'm hoping that I'm terrible enough that I lose my job and my successor gets the number 1 overall pick. Like,
so you're saying, like, if someone becomes available, they would much rather request a trade to a team who's 5th in the East than 12th in the East.
Yeah, but not even talking request a trade. I'm just talking, like, make a move. Yeah,
like the Aaron Gordon deal.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be Brad Beal. It doesn't have to be like a superstar. It can just be like a good role player.
And Aaron Gordon might not re-sign with Denver if they're not a top 3
seed.
Well,
yeah, exactly. And I mean, there is something to it of just being in the conversation. Like, maybe you win, maybe you won't. Atlanta wasn't going to make the fucking conference finals last year. Portland wasn't going to make it 3 years ago. Phoenix probably fucking wasn't going to make it, last year. In terms of start of the season, what people are talking about, start of the playoffs, what people are talking about, like, none of those teams were really considered to be, like, strong favourite. And although you can say that they, with Phoenix aside, they got to the conference finals and were maybe outclassed,
they got there.
They got there, and maybe someone breaks their leg. Maybe, Zaza steps under Kawhi's foot. So anyway, I'm saying it's better to be 5th than 14th. And so that in mind, I probably would do what Big Artie has done.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that in a minute, but what you're saying is like, there could be this opportunity where, like a disgruntled star like Kawhi Leonard becomes available, and then you trade DeMar DeRozan and picks for him.
There could be an opportunity like that.
And then you jump out of that 5 seed just right up to a title. Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. Been done before. So if I was Big Artie, like, I'm very much like, yes, you have to be on either end of the spectrum. Either you're drafting first for 5 years in a row, or you're running for a title. Downsides of not podcasting on Zoom. But like, if I criticise them for trading the pick to get DeMar and then overpaying for DeMar, and then I criticise them for trading for Nikola Vucevic halfway through last season. And obviously, if Zach LaVine doesn't get COVID, maybe they've got this goodwill heading into the season as opposed to now 14 games into the season. But there is something to be said for what you just said, where it is, hey, free agents and trade partners and just adding a little piece to this already good team is something. And if they hadn't gone in and got these guys, like Kobe White looks shit. Pat Williams is injured for 6 months, right? I know because I've got his cards on my shelf. Like, there's not much here. Ayo Donsumu looks mad, but he looks like a career backup guard, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's not much to build off here, and having Zach LaVine be as good as he is and get this Team USA bump, like, you're going to be very good for the foreseeable future, and he's just going to take you out of contention. If you just lose him, you might not get another Zach LaVine caliber player for the next 5 to 10 years. So, like, if it was any other team that didn't have Zach LaVine who was on the rise, I would say wrong move. But because they already had Zach LaVine who had already blossomed into a star, and now he's gotten even better, I think it is a good idea to do it. And I like, on paper, bringing in Vooch and bringing in DeMar. Still hate the money for DeMar.
Yeah, I mean, I when in saying that I would do the same moves, I probably wouldn't trade,
Thad Young
and a pick and give DeMar DeRozan 27 a year. But, maybe, I don't know, maybe you give DeMar like 3 years 60 or
Dude,
3
DeMar
years.
was interviewing with the Clippers for the
I know. But like,
it's Caruso, man.
Like Nate Duncan, initially when doing all of the, like the off-season grades, like the free agency grades, he was very critical of it, but he kind of said, like, you don't know what agreement verbally was in place from what time period, and it becomes very difficult for a team who's kind of like discussed with an agent and a player, like what they'd be willing to do to back out on that if they realize that the market, if they realize they've overestimated the market. They can't just say, oh, like what? We were going to give you 27, but the Clippers were going to give you a 1 year 6. Oh, well, we'll give you 10. Because he'll just be like, no, I'll probably just take the 6 from the better team. So obviously that's not a defense of the contract. It's indefensible. And it probably will, as we get into year 2 and 3, become a bit of a, whoa, this guy's getting, 35-year-old DeMar DeRozan getting $27 million a year. But I guess
is he vegan yet?
He's just got to get in a room with Chris Paul. That's all it takes. I guess.
Do not put me in a room with Chris Paul. Fucker.
Carnage. Hey, that's NBA Finals runner-up, Chris Paul to you.
Yeah.
Put some respect on his name.
Hey, good on him.
So I would probably do the same thing. I just would hopefully maybe not pay DeMar a little bit less. I hopefully would pay him a little bit less. But I mean, if the Bulls are good and you have to deal with that problem in 2023, 2024, well, fuck it.
All right, well, let's move on. So,
hey, at 12 Don Yang, do you like hearing the down low on all your NBA and basketball content?
Hey, at Will Conkin on Instagram and Twitter. Don't you mean the lowdown on NBA and basketball content?
No, I mean the down low, because that's our show, The Down Low,
where we give you the lowdown on everything NBA.
Check out The Down Low NBA on all your podcasting platforms like Spotify, Apple, or even Google Podcasts.
Google has podcasts?
Yeah, I didn't even know that either, but now you know, so go and get it in your ears.
As we said at the top, we're going to be running through each teams each week. Let's make it a weekly thing, yeah?
Yeah,
great. before we move on to our final topic, I do actually want to talk about one piece of news, which I'm just starting to think is pretty important, and we can just smash 5 minutes.
Is this a piece of news that's in the run sheet, or you dropping it on me?
Oh, it's sort of like it's related to one of the ones on the run sheet. But the fact that the Pistons expressed interest in Marvin Bagley, I don't know who has it, but what do you think about the Pistons?
I think it's a very Pistons-y move.
Is it?
Yeah, to take on someone who's like kind of been shit.
Like Trey Lyles.
high draft pedigree, kind of been shit. Take him on and let's figure it out. So to back up my point, I'd say Hamid Diallo, who
would have to be in the deal.
Would have to be in the deal, but who they got from OKC last year. Josh Jackson, who they got from fucking around. And Trey Lyles, you mentioned, but also Sekou Doumbia. I know they drafted him, but he was still shit, and they were like, let's see what we have. Yeah, so I think that's very Pistonsy just to get like a, high draft pedigree, second draft kind of guy. In Josh Jackson's case, like 4th, 5th, or 6th draft. And
he was good in Memphis. They just signed a good player.
I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a bit scarred. Literally, this is the beautiful thing about sports fandom, is because I can sit here like a few months removed from my team making the finals and like almost winning a championship, when 3 years ago I was telling myself that Josh Jackson shooting 38% from 3 from January to April at the end of his first season was really indicative that he's turned the corner. He's going to be a good shooter. And then I've gone to Chris Paul and Devin Booker hitting clutch buzzer beaters in the playoffs. So,
Dude, you're telling me, man. Like I've been watching Steph Curry take and make almost 13 threes a game. And just 2 years ago, I was watching Kai Bowman being like, does he have a role in the future of the Warriors? Like,
I hope that tongue is planted firmly in your cheek, mister.
Eric Paschal, how would he look backing up Rudy Gobert? Actually, on that, and no one gives a fuck, Amari Spellman should be in the league after that stellar year with Golden State.
With Golden State?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say stellar year with the Guangdong Tigers.
Oh. Yeah, so Marvin Bagley, sure, get traded to the Pistons. If they could give up anyone else apart from a player under 30.
I misspoke. I meant Anyang KGC of the Korean Basketball League. He's good. Hey, he was good. You can't deny it.
I'm sure he's good in the A-Yang. I'm sure he's good there.
I think it's very Pistonsy, but are the Kings going to trade him? His salary must be like 14 or 15 million.
I think it's 11.
11.
Yeah.
That's big for someone who has.
Who's dog water.
Yeah, who is dog water.
Are you getting it up or should I?
No, I'll get it up.
Alright, cool.
What, his stats or his salary?
Salary. I can guess. Well, did you see he wanted to check into the game? Luke Walton wanted to put him in for garbage time and he said no.
Yeah.
Man, Luke Walton, I'm here.
What's with all of these?
I scored 12 points last night.
Yeah.
And I had a block in the last 30 seconds.
You scored 12 points on Monday night as well, didn't you?
24. He's
Whoa.
watching. Actually, that's... Okay, I've got 2.
He's watching.
Last night...
It's 11 this year.
Is he... And... they're not going to pick up any... No, sorry, he's a free agent because he was the same draft class as Luka. That's right.
Yeah.
The depth, the deep two. God, that's a mouthful. Anyways, I'm Marco, co-host of the Hey, Daniel Gafford, what's the name of our podcast?
The JVG NBA Tribute Show.
Wow, I can't believe it's that easy. Thanks, Gaff. You probably know us as 2 members of the 4-Man Weave plus Marco, but we know you as our next listener.
Well said, Lucas. I gotta ask, how do we differ from the Pack of Basketball podcasts?
It's a great question, Marco. You see, on our basketball podcast, we have 2 male co-hosts.
Wow, truly groundbreaking. After this episode, stay on your favourite podcasting app and give us a spin.
So last night I'm playing basketball. I'm sitting there, a cheeky 12er. One thing, I did have this block and I'm like, yep, I've got it. So I grab the ball after the block and I leg it. I've never run this fast with the ball in my life, right? I'm like 3 strides across the half court. And then there's 2 defenders in front of me, and I'm like, this is going on hoop type. There's magic in this. 2 defenders in front of me. I pick up the ball at the 3-point line, take 3 steps, and miss the layup. But in my brain, it was 2 steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get called for...
Oh, yeah, I got called.
Yeah.
I got called on
Did everyone else go, no?
But do you want to know, one of the people who laughed at me, I was one of the people who, as I was sitting there during the free throws, like I'm, hands on my knees, like looking down, like, and I look at this dude's shoes, and he's just got like Kobe's on. He has like white Kobe's with like a little bit of green and whatever. And then on the side, with a texter, he had written "Rip GG Love Heart." Not even Kobe. He had written "Rip GG."
That is actually the most cringe thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
4th Div, Mill Park, 9:50 on a Wednesday. Please don't take yourself that seriously.
Oh my goodness. Was he wearing a shooting sleeve?
No, I've actually never come across anyone in my life wearing a shooting sleeve. I wanted to buy one for my friend for his birthday one year. I went to every sports store in the fucking planet, and I'm like, "Do you guys have shooting sleeves?" And they're like, "Nah." One dude was like, "That's hilarious," but no.
That is hilarious. No,
you have to order them.
Yeah, you get them every now and then. The shooting sleeve is a dead giveaway, and it also is like shooting sleeve for me is like if I was it's like what a red flag is for a bull. Like I'm going at you. Like
you mean like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I actually so what I've been wearing to each of my Wednesday night games is shoes in different colorways of HBCUs.
Wow, you are committed to racial diversity.
I get interviewed after the game. No, I just write, "I can do all things." And score 54 points in Madison Square Garden.
Well, I don't write anything because my shoes speak for themselves. My performance speaks for themselves.
What shoes do you wear?
I wear Adizeros from about 2014 that desperately need to be replaced.
See, I replaced my shoes last month.
Yeah.
I got Giannis's Zoom 2s or whatever.
Would you recommend? Because I'm in the market.
No.
Yeah.
Way too tight.
Yeah, okay.
And I really need the ankle support. I didn't realise until I started playing on low tops. I would love like those Shaq Reeboks, the big fat ugly ones. But they're like vintage, super expensive, and I just want to thrash them.
I used to play when I first started playing. I was playing in the big fundamental Tim Duncan's Adidas shoe, blue and like teal and white colorway, and they were really big and chunky. Like lots of ankle support in those bad boys.
Actually, my first 2 pairs of shoes, the ugliest shoes of all time, the Derrick Roses, and then the John Wall 2s.
Yeah,
what a fucking string of shoes. Derrick Rose, John Wall, Giannis.
You've really
corrected myself on the third one.
Yeah. I was gonna say you've really stepped it up each time, but I'm not sure that John Wall is a step up from Derrick Rose.
Let me just.
In saying that, I mean he's almost certainly not.
Well, the John Wall logo looks really cool. It's just like a W, but got a little J hanging off it.
Yeah, I love.
Look at that D Rose logo.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, that's filth.
I tell you what I love: logos from guys who are getting paid $48 million to not play basketball. Yep. That's what I love.
Paul George has got the fish logo.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we pull?
We'll
pull this bad boy out of the weeds, but basically, because what do we love here? We love accountability.
The best ability is accountability.
The best ability is accountability. This is the opposite of accountability because we're giving ourselves a mulligan on one of our on each of our bad takes. Luckily for me, I only had one bad take in our over/under episodes. So I've only got one mulligan to make. So it's no problem for me. It was an easy choice.
What about me when I pushed half a win?
Yeah. I'm going to push on 2 numbers.
But also, if they hit 0.5 on either side.
Yeah. Not actually convinced that is how it works. But I tell you what, kid, I admire your guts.
All right. Dante, what is a mulligan of an over/under prediction?
Well, thanks for asking, Sean. That's a great question. No, so we did we did our over/under episodes, one for the East and one for the West. Maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago now, just before the season, where basically we predicted whether each team would finish over or under their Vegas odds. If you've been listening to the pod for a while, you know the drill. But basically, we're giving ourselves the ability to change one of them, basically walk it back and say, I was wrong. That's where the accountability comes in. It's not accountability in the sense that like we're like, going to face any responsibility or consequences for our actions, just in the sense that we're going to say, I was wrong, and quietly change it so that it looks like we're right. So in the spirit of that, I might kick things off.
Do you want to kick things off? So just a little bit of info. We will change one of our predictions, but we'll put a little asterisk next to it. So when we do the re-review at the end of the year and we run through all these numbers, we'll say, oh, by the way, I've won this one, but I also changed it after 15 games. So what are you? We only get one. What are you changing?
I went under on the Golden State Warriors. And I am changing mine shockingly to over because the number for the Golden State Warriors was 48.5 and I went obviously under. They are now through 14 games, they have 12 wins, which is roughly almost to the decimal point, 1/4 of their possible win total. So they only would need to win 36 games the rest of the season. Which would mean they have to play like 500 basketball. They have to win half of their games the rest of the season to hit this number. And that's crazy because Clay's coming back. They've got their 2 rookies they're working into their rotation, the 2 lottery rookies. And Big Jim's coming back as well. All of which would theoretically, I say theoretically very pointedly, all of which theoretically makes them a better team, or at least gives them more options. So if they're already the best team in the NBA by record, and by point differential, through 12 games, they get their second best player and a couple of young players coming in. Surely they're going to be better than 500 the rest of the season. So I'm going a mulligan on the Golden State Warriors.
And they've also got the league's MVP right now.
Yeah. Although if you read John Hollinger on The Athletic, he's crying out for people to not get sucked in by the glitzy glamour of Steph Curry banging in 9 threes every single fucking game. And he's opting
Colour me banged in.
He's urging people not to fall for it. And he's saying, why isn't Nikola Jokic getting more MVP pop? And I'll tell you why.
Shut up, John.
I'll tell you why, John. Because the Nuggets are kind of boring.
They're not.
Well,
I'll push back on that.
How much do you love Bones Highland?
I really like Bones Highland.
he's-
He relocates after every pass.
Yeah. Well, I like him too, but I don't love him. I don't love him.
He reminded me of someone today, and I can't remember who it was. But no, Bones is real nice. Bones should be fucking starting. Austin Rivers is committing fucking daylight robbery with his starting role. And Denver, swing, beautiful pass, mismatch, swing. The ball gets to Austin Rivers. His head goes right down, cross, doesn't go anywhere.
He should go and play on the Lakers. He can fill the Avery Bradley role of missing the threes that after the swing.
Yeah,
He would be.
Yeah,
He'd
so
fit right in.
that's a great call, putting Golden State in the over. I actually wasn't even that high on him heading in, but good 9-1.
Hey, I tell you what, an over is an over. That's what we always say here at the Deep 2. An over is an over.
So I was running through all these numbers and I was looking through like, what should we do? What's going on here? Toronto Raptors, what the fuck are we supposed to do with that? Like, you've gone over, I've gone under, but like, we haven't learned anything. And I'm looking through. We've both already gone over on the Bulls, so that's done and dusted. I've gone over on the Heat. I'm looking sexy there. Washington Wizards over.
A real sultry elongation of the S.
And I'm looking through, and I'm like, Dante went over on the Timberwolves. Jeez.
Yeah. What a schmuck. I also went over on the Thunder. Schmuck.
And then I'm like, ooh, what should we do here?
That's coming from the West.
And I was like, the Memphis Grizzlies. No, I already went over. And then I'm like, the New Orleans Pelicans. Yeah. Their number is set at 39.5.
That number may as well actually be 1 million. If it was 1 million, it would make no less difference.
And I went over. They're currently 2-13. Did they win today?
Did they win today? I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
Did they play today? I wouldn't know. But they are 2-13. If they want to win 40 games, they have to win 10 games over 500 for the rest of the way. Still without Zion. don't know. Like,
Hey, Zion is working his way back to progressing towards full team workouts.
oh, is he? All right, let me just change my prediction. Yeah, I'm changing that over to an under for the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah.
Because when we did this, did we know that he was fucking dead?
Well, we knew that I don't think we knew that it was going to be, fucking Christmas before he was going to come back. Certainly not.
That's optimistic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, if you did want to take the optimistic slant, you'd say that although they have the 30th ranked defense, their offense is only 26th. So, it's better.
So,
better.
like, yeah, how do you pronounce it? Schadenfreude?
Schadenfreude.
Obviously I read The Athletic. I've got a subscription and stuff. And
Whoa, we're thinking basketball then. Whoa, I pay for my content.
So I read like a lot of the good teams writers and stuff, and then I never read in the middle. It's always either the worst or the best. And I've been reading the shit out of William Guillory for the New Orleans Pelicans writer, and he's great when he goes on podcasts and stuff, and I've always listened to him, but this year I've really been reading him. And it's just like reading some of the stuff, and he's like, he's a nice writer. He's really optimistic, but he's a realist, and he's like, maybe don't play 15 players a night. Like, don't have played 15 players before the 3/4 time.
Yeah.
Especially if your top ones aren't even that good.
Well, Lucas on the most recent episode of the JVG show was saying that, like, and I didn't quite agree because he put the number on 9, but he was saying like a 9-man rotation is ideal because
him and Michael Malone would have a beautiful beer together.
They'd have a beautiful Coors Light. But no, there's something to that. Like, don't play too many players.
Yeah.
I think the number's probably 10, but we're splitting hairs. The principle
Splitting fucking hairs.
The principle is the same. Like, get your good players and play them, and wait until garbage time to play your bad players. Don't play them just because. Don't get everyone involved. Not everyone deserves to be involved.
Play 10 if you want to make the playoffs, and play 15 if you're Houston right now.
Yeah. If we're talking about a team that has actual aspirations, which it's better to be Houston because Houston has no aspirations other than saying what their young players can do. Like, New Orleans is kind of sad because they are aspirational, and they brought in a defensive head coach to fix their defense, which was then terrible, and then fired him after 1 year, brought in someone else, and now their defense is even worse.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, that's sad.
So we've obviously talked and written about it a lot. But David Griffin, is he fired before or after Christmas?
After. David Griffin, he's got time. I think
so,
Christmas is 5 weeks away, Sean. You've literally got your Cadbury Christmas
I haven't
calendar.
eaten it. What are you talking about?
The empty husk of a Cadbury Christmas calendar is looking right at me. Christmas is very, very soon. He won't be fired.
5 weeks is so
He won't be
long.
fired before Zion comes back.
Zion comes back, what, like 3 weeks from now?
If Zion comes back and they look bad for a month, he'll be fired.
Okay.
But it's difficult because he just hired Willie Green.
I understand that argument, but like Kawhi Leonard's out and that team looks fine. Now, yes, they've got Paul George, but if you just look at the non-Paul George players, you're like Terrence Mann, good. Nick Batum, good. Isaiah Hartenstein.
No, I mean, it seems very clear that through trades and through the draft, he's put his eggs in the wrong basket in that, like...
Wrong baskets.
Yeah, well, Kira Lewis Jr. and Nickeil Alexander-Walker have both been pretty average. Valanciunas has been okay, but...
Because he's Valanciunas, he's just going to keep doing that until he dies.
The bones of a good roster around Zion are not really there, which makes it you pessimistic even when he does come back. Ingram's missed some time, which hurts them a lot. And Ingram was an all-star 2 years ago, so he's obvious. Let's not downplay how good he can be. I think there's no way he gets fired before Zion. He has to have an opportunity to have Zion on the court before he'll get fired.
No, I disagree because, yes, this team's built around Zion, but no team should be this bad with any best player.
Well, I mean, any team that you take away their best player will struggle. The thing for me is that, okay, they're 26th in offense. Zion's a really good offensive player. He's going to come back and help them. They'll be better. Brandon Ingram won't have to be your first option. He can be your second option, which suits him just fine. Nickeil Alexander-Walker doesn't have to take however many shots a game he's taking, he can kind of be that off-ball role player. The issue is that they have the worst D in the league, and Zion's terrible on D. And if you tell me that over the last 6 months when he's been lying about his injury and getting fat, then he comes back and he's all of a sudden just a miraculous.
He sounds like me.
If he comes back and he's a miraculous, defensive player, I'll be very surprised. So the odds are that he's going to come back and be a bad defensive player like he has been his whole career, which for the 30th best defense is bad. The good news is you can't get any worse. But the bad news is for the 30th best defense, you can't even dream of winning, 30% of your games because it's one half of the game. 30th means that bad offensive teams are strolling in and getting whatever they want against you, and he's not going to help that. And I don't think that he'll bring them up from 26th to 8th in offense. It's not like they're all of a sudden going to have the Trailblazers offense and a really bad D. They'll probably be somewhere in the middle on offense, which will still be a drastic improvement, but not enough to lift. It's difficult to fire him though because he just.
Oh no! For me, it's easy.
Yeah, if you were running the show down there in Nolan's, but he just hired a coach who got signed on a 5-year deal.
Just hired his second coach.
Yeah, is it a 5-year deal? Or am I making that up? I don't know.
They're usually 3-year deals.
He just hired a coach. What do you do with the coach? Especially because the coach so far is having a pretty rough go of it. It's not like. Willie Green is inspired everybody to be wow, this guy really gets it. Maybe behind the scenes he has, but in terms of the on-court product, it's been about as rough of an introduction to head coaching life as you possibly can. So if Griffin gets fired, then that leaves Willie Green hanging tenuously, and if they finish 16 and 66, the GM's gone, the new GM gets hired in the offseason, he says, do I really want to keep this coach who just won 16 games? Maybe Willie Green goes, and then all of a sudden Zion's had 4 coaches in 4 years. It's man.
Yeah. All right, well, that's a good place to wrap it up.
It's a very
Zion
pessimistic place to wrap it up.
Dude, just fire the GM, you'll fix it. So... what do we have to say before we wrap up? So
I've got some plugs to say.
The first plug is keep an eye on our blog, which is also our website, thedeep2.com. Our chief technology officer has come back from weeks of improving his skill as a chief technology officer during exams. So we'll be having some articles come up for the next couple of weeks. You've got one in the Woodworks, which I don't know if you're ready to share yet. Is it the Woodworks or Wood?
It's just the work.
Just the works. The works.
You come out of the woodwork.
That's right.
And you have something in the works.
All right. So you'll talk about that next week. But for me, I've written some beautiful articles, as I always do, on nuglove.com.
Chef kiss.
I wrote one about Bol potential emergence.
What's wrong with him? Is he okay?
Because he just played his very first quarter minutes that I've seen in my whole entire life against the Dallas Mavericks, which was quite shocking given the fact that when Nikola Jokic was suspended for a game, Zeke Nagy was the dude playing ahead of him, which is weird that Bol all of a sudden just gets a shot anywhere, but his contract's guaranteed, so you may as well give him a go. And then I wrote one today about Nikola Jokic's defense, which is something a lot of people have been writing about, but obviously I'm better at talking about whether it's actually real and whether we should actually believe that Nikola Jokic is this good on defense. And the first paragraph starts off saying that 3 years ago, Adam Mares compared Nikola Jokic's defensive potential to Marc Gasol, and you would have laughed at him 3 years ago. Today, not as laughable.
Not as laughable.
So, Dante, I will speak to you next week on the podcast, though.
Yeah, probably.
Peace. We were over the moon when we first heard that the NBA was going to be televised on Australian free-to-air TV in the 2019-20 season. It didn't exactly go swimmingly, with the nasty cough halting the season and games getting cancelled left, right and centre, but it was a huge step and an exciting one for basketball fans all across the country.
Better yet, it wasn't a commercial channel cashing in on some basketball nerds like us. It was SBS, one of our public broadcasters. Unfortunately, the NBA wasn't the only thing SBS was pushing last season. They also ran advertisements from Sportsbet, Ladbrokes, Bet365, BetEasy, and Neds, some of the biggest sports betting companies in Australia.
In a one step forwards, two steps backwards move, SBS has dropped the ball here. As a public broadcaster, SBS plays a key role in providing relevant, culturally appropriate health information to local communities. The last thing SBS should be doing is offering a platform for gambling companies during the most financially unstable time in recent memory.
This past year, men aged 18 to 24 made up 79% of new gambling account holders, with increased median spending and frequency of bets. This is the last thing we should be spending our money on given the financial uncertainty that comes with the pandemic. During COVID lockdowns, wagering companies spent more money on advertising and incentives to gamble, and it worked. SBS needs to hear from viewers that gambling ad revenue isn't worth the harm it causes. Call on the SBS chair, George Savitas, to put community health ahead of gambling revenue by signing the petition at www.endgamblingads.org.au/get gambling off SBS with hyphens in between.